I still remember the moment I saw my reflection in the mirror that evening. It didn't feel like a disguise anymore. The eyeliner wasn't just makeup. The dress wasn't just fabric. It was me, the version of me I'd always hidden behind walls of fear and excuses. But that night, everything was different. Because I was about to go on a date. With him. And he had no idea who I really was. His name was Aaron. We met months earlier, online, in a small art forum. At first, I joined under a fake name, just to have somewhere I could talk without judgment. It felt easier to exist behind a profile picture that looked like a woman. People were kinder to her, to me. They listened. They cared. Aaron was one of them. He wasn't just kind, he was warm, patient, and funny in that awkward, honest way that makes you feel safe. He'd send me sketches of flowers and streets he wanted to visit someday. And somehow, he made me feel like I belonged. So when he asked to meet in person, I froze. I told myself I should delete everything, vanish, pretend it never happened. But something in me didn't want to run anymore. For years, I had been living in halves, the person I showed to the world, and the person I saw when no one was looking. That night, I made a choice. I didn't want to lie to him, but I needed to meet him, just once, to know what it felt like to be seen as the version of me I actually felt inside. So I said yes. I spent the entire week terrified. Every small detail mattered. The dress I chose wasn't glamorous, just soft and simple, a pale lavender shade that made me feel calm. I practiced walking in small heels around my room, whispering words in front of the mirror to make sure my voice didn't tremble too much. My heart pounded each time I thought of seeing him. What if he noticed? What if he laughed? Or worse, what if he didn't recognize me at all? The evening came. The air smelled like rain, and the streets shimmered under the soft glow of streetlights. My hands trembled as I fixed my hair in the car mirror. I wanted to back out 100 times. But then I thought of how lonely I had been, all the birthdays I'd spent pretending to be someone I wasn't, all the jokes I'd laughed at just to fit in. I wasn't doing this to fool anyone. I was doing this to breathe for once. I spotted him outside the cafe. He wore the same grey jacket from his photos. He waved, smiling nervously, and my heart nearly stopped. For a moment, I forgot to move. When I finally walked toward him, it was like the world went silent. His eyes lit up, not because he recognized me, but because he saw someone who made him smile. And that, somehow, hurt and healed me at the same time. We sat by the window, sipping coffee and talking about everything and nothing. He told me how nervous he was meeting me, how he almost turned around twice. I laughed, a soft, fragile laugh that didn't sound like mine. But the more we talked, the more I relaxed. For the first time, I wasn't pretending to be strong, or masculine, or what others wanted me to be. I was just there, present. Real. He asked about my interests, my favorite artists, my favorite childhood memory. And I realized I didn't have to fake any of it. I was telling the truth, my truth, just in a different form. At one point, a song started playing in the background. Something soft and nostalgic. He looked at me and said, "You know, you have the kindest eyes." I didn't know how to respond. My throat tightened. I looked away before the tears could show. No one had ever said something like that to me, not when I was myself, anyway. In that moment, I understood what it meant to be seen, even if it was through a lens of misunderstanding. As we walked out later, he offered his hand. My instinct was to pull away, to protect myself from the tenderness I didn't think I deserved. But instead, I let his hand stay. Warm, gentle, human. We walked quietly to my car, and when we said goodbye, he looked at me like he wanted to say something more. But he didn't. He just smiled, the kind that stays with you long after you drive away. I sat in the car, shaking. My heart felt heavy, full of something too complicated to name. I stared at myself in the mirror again, mascara slightly smudged, lipstick fading. It should have felt like a lie. But it didn't. It felt like the truest thing I'd ever lived. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying everything, his laugh, his eyes, the way he listened. A part of me wanted to tell him the truth, right there and then. To say, "I'm not who you think I am." But I couldn't. Not yet. I needed to be sure that what I felt wasn't just illusion. I needed to be sure I was ready to live as me, not as someone's idea of who I should be. Over the next few days, he texted me constantly. Little things: good morning, you looked beautiful, can I see you again? I should have felt joy, but instead, guilt gnawed at me. He deserved the truth. And so did I. I wrote a long message, deleting it a dozen times before hitting send. I told him everything. That the person he met wasn't a lie, but also wasn't the whole truth. That for years, I'd felt disconnected from the face in the mirror, and this was my first time letting that side of me breathe in the real world. I told him how meeting him made me feel human again, not because he made me someone else, but because he unknowingly gave me the courage to stop hiding. Then I waited. Minutes felt like hours. My chest hurt from the silence. Then my phone buzzed. One message. I almost didn't look. He wrote, "Thank you for trusting me. I don't know what this means for us, but I do know one thing: you're one of the bravest people I've ever met." I cried. Not the quiet kind, but the kind that shakes your whole body. It wasn't about romance anymore. It was about acceptance, about someone seeing all of me and not turning away. That night, for the first time in years, I fell asleep without shame. We met again later, this time without makeup, without a disguise, just me. My voice trembled as I walked up to him, terrified he'd see me differently. But he smiled, the same way he did the first time. We talked, and though things were complicated, it didn't matter. Because he didn't run. He listened. He saw me, not the version I presented, not the name I hid behind, just me. And that was enough. Sometimes I still think about that night, how it began as a secret and ended as a beginning. It taught me something I wish I'd known sooner, that hiding might keep you safe, but it also keeps you small. And when you finally step out, trembling, afraid, and uncertain, that's when life truly begins. So yes, I went on a date with him dressed as a woman, and he had no idea. But in the end, it wasn't about the disguise at all. It was about the courage it took to stop pretending and the unexpected kindness that made me believe I didn't have to anymore. And if I could tell him one last thing, it would be this: thank you for helping me meet myself. The disguise at all. It was about the courage it took to stop pretending and the unexpected kindness that made me believe I didn't have to anymore. Months passed. I didn't expect to hear from him again after that last meeting, but one quiet evening, my phone buzzed. It was Aaron. He had sent a photo, a sketch of the same cafe window where we had sat months before, two figures drawn inside, facing each other. Underneath, he'd written, "I miss talking to you." My chest tightened. Not out of fear this time, but something softer, a kind of peace mixed with longing. He still wanted to talk, even knowing everything. We met again. No masks, no filters. Just two people sitting by that same window, the world moving outside while time seemed to stand still inside. He asked about my journey, how it felt to finally live as myself. I told him it wasn't easy, that people stared, whispered, sometimes laughed. But I also told him I'd never felt more alive. Every morning, when I looked in the mirror, I saw a face that finally felt like home. He listened quietly, then said something I'll never forget: "You don't owe anyone a version of yourself that makes them comfortable." It was strange, sitting there with someone who once only knew my reflection. But what struck me most wasn't that he accepted me, it was that he respected me. The kind of respect that doesn't try to fix or define, just to understand. When he smiled that day, I realized how powerful simple kindness can be. Sometimes, it's enough to heal what years of shame have broken. As days turned into weeks, we grew closer again. This time, there were no illusions. We talked about art, about fear, about how strange it is to start life over when you've already lived so much of it hiding. I told him how hard it had been losing friends who couldn't understand, feeling invisible in rooms I used to belong to. But I also told him how freeing it was to stand in the sun and not feel like I was burning for it. He didn't say much, but his silence was the kind that listens, not judges. One evening, we walked along the riverside. The sky was turning orange, and the city lights began to flicker to life. He looked at me and said, "Do you ever wish you'd never told me?" I smiled sadly. "No," I said. "Because that night, I needed to meet you to finally meet myself. He nodded, eyes glistening. I'm glad you did. He reached for my hand again, just like that first night, and this time, I didn't hesitate. There was no pretending anymore, no hiding behind layers of fear. Just me, just him, just this fragile moment between who we were and who we were still becoming. The world didn't need to understand it. It just needed to let it be. After that, life moved forward. We didn't turn into a fairy tale couple. We had our distance, our differences, our separate paths. But he remained one of the few people who truly saw me before I had the courage to see myself. Every now and then, I still get messages from him, a sketch, a memory, a simple hope you're doing okay. And every time, I smile. Because it reminds me how far I've come. There are days I still struggle. There are mornings I wake up afraid that I'll never fully fit anywhere. But then I remember that night at the cafe, that trembling first step I took into the world as the person I was meant to be. And I realize that courage doesn't mean being fearless. It means doing it anyway, even when your voice shakes and your heart pounds. People often ask me if I regret what I did, pretending to be someone else, meeting him that way. But the truth is, that moment changed everything. It wasn't deception, it was discovery. It was the bridge between who I used to be and who I finally became. Without it, I might still be hiding, still believing I had to choose between being accepted and being myself. Now, when I look back, I don't see that night as a mistake. I see it as the first time I allowed my heart to breathe. The fear, the shame, the trembling courage, it all led me here. To this peace. To this truth. And maybe, that's what love really is, not about being seen as perfect, but about being seen at all. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that life doesn't hand you the right moment. You create it. You step out, even if your hands shake, even if you're not sure how the world will react. Because somewhere out there, there's always someone who will look past the mask, the makeup, the mistakes, and just see you. The real you. So yes, I went on a date with him dressed as a woman, and he had no idea. But maybe, in some strange, beautiful way, he saw more of me that night than anyone ever had before. And that's why I'll never forget it, not because of the secret, but because of the courage it gave me to finally live without one.